3 days from today, Sororo will come to take you as his bride.
Mama Eneka walked as fast as her old legs could carry her. She did not stop to greet anyone. She did not answer the villagers who called after her. Her mind was racing. It cannot be. It cannot be. Within minutes, she arrived at the sacred shrine of Azumiri. The place was unusually quiet. Standing before the entrance, she removed her slippers and bowed her head. "I seek an audience with the chief priest." One of the shrine attendants disappeared inside. A few moments later, he returned. "You may enter." Mama Neka stepped into the ancient shrine with trembling legs. The chief priest sat quietly before the sacred altar. Without looking up, he spoke. "You look troubled." Mama Neka struggled to catch her breath. "I've seen it." The priest slowly raised his head. "Seen what?" "The pot." Silence. The priest's expression hardened. "What pot?" "The clay pot, the one that feeds." The chief priest rose to his feet. "Where?" Mama Neka swallowed hard. "In Abigail's house." The priest stared at her for several seconds, then asked the question that made her blood run cold. "Did you touch it?" She quickly shook her head. "No, I only looked at it." The priest closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, there was fear in them. Real fear. "Gather the elders and send someone for the village drummers." Mama Neka frowned. "The drummers?" The priest nodded slowly. "If that pot is truly in Abigail's house," he paused, "we may already be too late." The deep sound of traditional drums echoed across Azumiri. Boom, boom, boom. Within moments, the entire village came to a standstill. Women abandoned their cooking, children stopped playing, farmers hurried home from their fields. Everyone recognized those drums. They were never beaten unless the village faced great danger. Deep whispers quickly spread from one compound to another. What happened? Has someone died? Did the shrine speak? One by one, the villagers followed the sound until they gathered outside Abigail's compound. Inside the little hut, Abigail looked through her window in confusion. She had never seen so many people outside her home. Before she could step outside, the crowd slowly parted. The chief priest appeared. Behind him walked the village elders. No one spoke. No one dared. The chief priest stopped a few steps from Abigail's doorway.
Abigail, prepare yourself. 3 days from today, Sororo will come to take you as his bride.
What?
You heard me. On the 3rd night, you will leave this world.
Have you all gone mad?
Yeah.
I have never entered Sororo's shrine.
Yeah.
I have never offered him a sacrifice. So why would Sororo want me?
Want you? Abigail, Sororo has already chosen you.
You're lying.
Am I? Answer me, Abigail. For how many nights has food appeared at your doorstep?
How?
Helen.
How do you know about the food?
Abigail, answer me honestly. For exactly how many nights has food appeared at your doorstep?
30. Why are they crying? Somebody, tell me what's happening.
There is no longer any prayer, no sacrifice, no ritual that can save you.
Save me from what?
You thought someone was feeding your children out of kindness. You were wrong. Every meal, every bowl of soup, every piece of bread came from Sororo and Abigail. No one eats Sororo's food for free.
Abigail's scream echoed across the entire village. No! No one moved. No one spoke. The sound lingered in the air long after her voice had broken. Some women lowered their heads. Others quietly wiped tears from their faces. The village elders stood motionless. Even they could not bear to look at her. The chief priest slowly lowered his head. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "Leave her!" No one questioned the order. One by one, the villagers began to walk away. No one offered words of comfort. No one dared. The silence was heavier than mourning. Mama Neka remained where she stood. Tears streamed silently down her wrinkled cheeks. She looked at Abigail, not with fear anymore, but with the helpless sorrow of a mother watching her own child walk toward a fate she could not prevent. Slowly, she turned away. After only a few steps, she stopped. She looked back one last time. Abigail still stood exactly where the chief priest had left her, motionless, broken. Mama Neka closed her eyes briefly, then whispered beneath her breath, "May the Almighty have mercy on you, my daughter." Without another word, she walked away. Within minutes, the compound was empty. Only Abigail and her two frightened children remained. For a long moment, Abigail did not move. Her children stood beside her, too frightened to speak. The widow slowly wiped the tears from her face. Then, almost absent-mindedly, she turned toward the kitchen. Her heart skipped. The corner where the clay pot had stood for 30 days was empty. She frowned. No. She took a few hurried steps forward. Her eyes searched the kitchen, the charcoal stove, the shelves, the kitchen wall. Nothing. Her breathing became uneven. No. She rushed outside. Perhaps someone had moved it. She searched beside the hut. Nothing. She looked behind the kitchen. Nothing. She ran around the compound. Nothing. The clay pot had vanished. It had not been broken. It had not been stolen. It had simply disappeared. Abigail slowly stopped running. Her shoulders trembled. The chief priest's words echoed relentlessly inside her mind. No one eats Sororo's food for free. 3 days from today, Sororo will come to take you as his bride. Her legs suddenly became too weak to carry her. She sank slowly onto the bare earth. For the first time, she believed every single word he had spoken. The afternoon passed in complete silence. Abigail remained seated outside the hut, staring at the empty corner of the kitchen where the mysterious clay pot had once stood. She could still remember the first morning she had found it there, steaming, warm, filled with hope. Now, there was nothing. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the tall palm trees, her little boy walked over and tugged gently at her wrapper. "Mama?" She slowly looked at him. He glanced toward the empty kitchen, then back at her. "Mama, where's the pot?" Abigail's lips parted, but no words came. The little girl looked at her mother. "Is the food coming tomorrow?" Abigail forced a faint smile. I don't know." That evening, she searched every basket, every clay container, and every corner of the hut. Only a handful of dried cassava remained. She divided it carefully between the two children. When her daughter noticed there was none for her mother, she held out her own small piece. "Mama, you can have mine." Abigail gently pushed her daughter's hand away. "No, my child, I'm not hungry." It was a lie. Her stomach had been empty since morning. That night, for the first time in many weeks, the children went to bed hungry. The little boy curled up beside his sister. "Mama, will the food come back tomorrow?" Abigail swallowed the lump in her throat. She gently stroked her hair. "Go to sleep. I'll be here." Within minutes, both children drifted off to sleep. But Abigail remained awake. She sat quietly in the darkness, listening to the slow rhythm of their breathing. Sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, the chief priest's voice echoed inside her mind. No one eats Sororo's food for free. Then she heard it. A slow, deliberate footstep outside the hut. Crunch. Another. Crunch. Abigail's eyes flew open. She held her breath. The footsteps stopped. Silence. She waited, too afraid to move, too afraid to look outside. Then, nothing. The first rays of sunlight crept across Azumiri. Abigail had not slept. She quietly wrapped her faded wrapper around her waist, picked up her old woven basket, and kissed both children on the forehead. "I'll be back soon. Stay inside." The little girl nodded. "We'll wait for you, Mama." Abigail forced a smile, then walked toward the village market. As she entered the marketplace, the familiar sounds of bargaining filled the air. Women arranged vegetables in neat rows. Men unloaded baskets of yams. Children ran between the stalls laughing. For a brief moment, life seemed normal. Then, someone noticed her. The whispers began. "That's Abigail, the widow, the one with Sororo's pot." Heads slowly turned. Conversations faded. A woman who had once greeted Abigail every market day quietly picked up her basket and walked away. Another avoided her eyes completely. Abigail pretended not to notice. She approached a trader she had worked for many times before. "Mama Chi, do you have any loads I can carry today?" The woman hesitated, then lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry, I've already found someone." Abigail nodded politely. "It's all right." She walked to another stall. "I can wash your cooking pots." The woman took one nervous step backwards. "No, I'm fine." At the far end of the market, she found a farmer preparing to leave for his fields. "I can help weed your farm. I'll walk until sunset." The farmer tightened his grip on his hoe. Without saying a word, he simply turned and walked away. Abigail stood there alone. No one shouted at her. No one cursed her. No one chased her away. They simply kept their distance. Not because they hated her, but because they were afraid. Afraid that anyone who stood too close to Abigail might also attract Sororo's attention. By midday, her basket was still empty. With slow, weary steps, she began the long walk home. The journey felt much longer than it had ever had before. When she reached her compound, her children ran outside with hopeful smiles. "Mama, did you bring food?" Abigail looked into their eager little faces, then quietly lowered her empty basket. The smiles disappeared. Without a word, she gathered both children into her arms and held them tightly. That night, the little hut was quieter than it had ever been. No gentle knock came at the door. No mysterious clay pot appeared on the doorstep. No footsteps echoed through the compound. Only silence. The children fell asleep quickly, exhausted from another day without food. But Abigail remained awake. She sat against the mud wall, hugging her knees. The kerosene lantern had long since gone out. Only pale moonlight slipped through the tiny window. She stared into the darkness, listening, waiting. Minutes passed, then hours. Still, nothing. She slowly released the breath she had been holding. Perhaps the chief priest was wrong. Perhaps everything would be all right. Just as she began to close her eyes, a strange feeling settled over her. It was so strong, she could not ignore it. Someone was outside. She couldn't hear footsteps. She couldn't hear breathing. She couldn't hear a single sound. Yet, every part of her body screamed the same warning. Someone was standing outside the hut, watching, waiting. Her heart began to pound. She slowly turned her head toward the wooden door. The silence became unbearable. She wanted to stand. She wanted to look outside, but fear rooted her to the spot. She remained exactly where she was, watching the door, waiting for it to move. It never did. The night dragged on, and the feeling never left. The third morning came, bringing no food, no miracle, no hope. The little hut felt colder than usual. Abigail searched every basket one last time, every clay pot, every container. Nothing. Not even a handful of gari remained. The children sat quietly on the raffia mat. They no longer complained. They no longer asked for breakfast. Hunger had stolen even their energy. The little boy rested his head against his sister's shoulder. His voice was barely a whisper. "Mama." Abigail turned toward him. He looked at the empty kitchen, then back at her. "Is the pot never coming back?" The words pierced her heart like a knife. She opened her mouth to answer. Nothing came out. Her daughter lowered her head. "It's all right, Mama. We'll be okay." But Abigail knew they wouldn't. Not like this. She looked at her children. Their faces, once full of laughter, had become tired again. The little color that had returned to their cheeks after 30 days of good food was already beginning to fade. Tears filled her eyes. She quickly turned away so they would not see them fall. She walked outside the hut, stood alone in the quiet compound, lifted her face toward the sky. Her voice broke. "What do you want me to do? I chose my children. I chose you. So why are they suffering again?" Silence. Only the wind answered. She slowly covered her face with both hands. Her shoulders began to shake. For the first time since the chief priest's warning, Abigail stopped fighting her fear. She broke down completely. That night, sleep refused to visit Abigail's hut. The children lay curled together beneath their thin wrapper, exhausted, hungry, peacefully unaware of the battle raging inside her mother's heart. Abigail sat beside them for a long time, watching them, listening to their quiet breathing. She gently brushed her fingers across her son's forehead, then kissed her daughter's cheek. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "So sorry." Slowly, she stood. She wrapped her old faded wrapper tightly around her shoulders. Without making a sound, she slipped out of the hut. The village was asleep. Only the distant song of crickets filled the night. She looked up at the dark sky. For a brief moment, she almost prayed, but the words refused to come. Instead, she clenched both fists. Her voice trembled with grief. "Sororo?" Only silence answered. She shouted again, "Sororo, if you're truly the one behind all this, then stop hiding. Come out." The wind suddenly died. The crickets fell silent. Even the leaves stopped moving. Abigail's breathing grew heavier. Tears streamed down her face. You want me? Here I am. But leave my children alone. They have done nothing. If a life must be taken, her voice broke. Take mine, but spare my children. The silence became unbearable. Then she heard a single footstep. Crunch. Another. Crunch. Someone was walking toward her. Slowly, unhurried. From the darkness between the trees, a tall, hooded figure emerged. Its long black cloak swayed gently with each step. The hood hung low over its face. Nothing could be seen beneath it. No eyes, no mouth. Only darkness. The figure continued walking, never rushing, never speaking, until it stopped only a few feet away from Abigail. Neither of them moved. Abigail swallowed hard. Her legs trembled, yet she forced herself to remain standing. Tears blurred her vision. With the last courage she possessed, she whispered, "Show yourself." The figure remained perfectly still. Then, very slowly, it lifted both hands. Its long fingers reached for the edge of the hood. Abigail's heart pounded violently inside her chest. The hood began to move. Slowly, inch by inch, it started to fall backward. Just before the face beneath was revealed, Abigail let out a blood-curdling scream. "No!" She bolted upright, gasping for breath. Her chest rose and fell violently. Sweat covered her face. She looked wildly around the hut. No forest, no hooded figure, no Sororo. Only darkness, only the familiar mud walls of her little home. Beside her, the children jerked awake. "Mama!" The little boy rubbed his sleepy eyes. "What's wrong?" Without answering, Abigail pulled both children into her arms. She held them tightly, so tightly that her daughter could barely breathe. Tears rolled freely down her cheeks. "My babies, my precious children." She kissed their foreheads again and again. The little girl gently touched her mother's face. "Mama, did you have another bad dream?" Abigail nodded slowly. "Yes, but it was only a dream." She repeated the words, almost as though she needed to convince herself. It was only a dream. It wasn't real. The children slowly drifted back to sleep. Abigail remained awake. The first rays of dawn had begun to creep through the tiny window. She took a long, trembling breath. Then she heard it. Talk. Her entire body froze. No. Talk. The same gentle knock. The same knock she had heard every single morning for the past 30 days in her dream. Abigail's heart pounded violently. Slowly, she rose to her feet. Every step toward the door felt heavier than the last. She reached for the wooden handle. Her trembling fingers barely managed to grip it. Very slowly, she pulled the door open. There it was, the same modest clay pot, resting quietly on her doorstep. Fresh white steam curled gently from beneath its lid. Abigail stared at it, unable to breathe. Then the chief priestess's voice echoed inside her mind. "No one, no one, no one eats Sororo's food for free." Her eyes widened. The dream, the prophecy, the hooded figure, it all came rushing back. "No!" She stumbled backwards. "No!" With all her strength, she slammed the wooden door shut. Bang! The children stirred in their sleep. Abigail collapsed onto her knees. Her hands trembled as she lifted them toward heaven. Tears poured down her face. "Father, I'm sorry. I accused you of forgetting me. I questioned your love. I even believed you had abandoned my children." She broke down completely. But now I know and I understand that nothing good comes from the devil. If that food did not come from you, I don't want it." Her voice grew stronger. "Even if my children and I go hungry, I would rather hunger than belong to Sororo. I choose you. I choose the living God. I renounce every gift, every blessing, every covenant that did not come from you. My children belong to you, and so do I. Please forgive me. Protect us. Deliver us. I have nowhere else to run." She remained on her knees, praying, weeping, pleading. Time seemed to disappear. At last, silence filled the little hut. Abigail slowly opened her eyes. A strange peace settled over her heart. She rose to her feet, walked once more to the wooden door. This time, her hands no longer trembled. She slowly pulled it open. The doorstep was empty. The clay pot was gone. Only the cool morning breeze greeted her. Abigail stood there in stunned silence. Then, tears filled her eyes once again. Not tears of fear, but tears of hope. She lifted her face toward heaven, and for the first time in many days, she smiled.